Welcome to Brothers Talking, a monthly program that brings a cross-generational group of black men together, creating a safe and brave space for honest, fearless discussion about the issues and challenges and fears faced by black men. The goal of Brothers Talking is to amplify and explore the lived experiences of black men, the pain, joy, success, failure, and the resulting opportunities for growth and self-discovery. An incredible group of brothers are joining me on this film journey of conversation and community, self-awareness and self-actualization. Entrepreneur George Davis, operating stationary engineer Dion Hill, Pastor Dr. Aaron J. McLeod, Director of Government Affairs Melville Nickerson, Legislative Associate Justice Pugh, and business owner Joshua Sanders. Brothers, let's continue this journey together.
When you commit to authentic voices, when you trust powerful stories, recognition follows. 2 Emmy nominations, the first in our history. Stream the Emmy-nominated programs now on cantv.org or on the CanTV Plus app. CanTV. Experience the power of community television.
Cable cord cutting, funding rollbacks, growing efforts to silence community voices. The stakes have never been higher for a community television station. Since 1983, CanTV has proudly served as Chicago's home for truth, access, and accountability. From City Hall to your front door, we make sure your story is told. But to keep it local and to keep it real, we need you. Please visit cantv.org and donate today. The future of Chicago's voice is in your hands.
Brothers, before we dive into this month's topic, let's first do a temper check. We'll start with you, Josh, and work our way around the circle. How's it going?
Oh man, things are great, man. Glad to be in the building again. Looking forward to Thanksgiving. Family's doing well, kids are doing well. Got a lot to be thankful for.
Awesome. Justice?
Also doing well. Also excited for the holidays and glad to be rounding out the work day with you brothers.
Awesome. Dion?
Well, everything's going fine. Work's going fine. Business, money markets, everything's up for me. So I'm thanking God for that.
Absolutely. George?
Blessed. Feeling good, glad to be back with you fellas, and excited for the topic.
Absolutely. Aaron?
Well, heart for service, it's time to give out those turkeys, make sure people are fed for the week.
Okay. Mel?
Yeah, things are great. Counting my blessings. Again, likewise, happy to be here with you brothers and engage in conversation.
Awesome. I appreciate you all sharing how things are going for you. On my end, I'm equally blessed, looking forward to the holiday, and honestly just having a little bit of downtime. This month we are elevating a candid and timely conversation about the complexities of race, identity, and self-perception, specifically among black men. Our topic, colorism, texturism, and proximity to whiteness. Colorism, the preference for lighter skin within communities of color, isn't just an abstract concept. Research shows that people with darker skin tones often face worse outcomes in everything from income and education to dating and criminal justice. For instance, a study with the National Bureau of Economic Research found that among African Americans, lighter-skinned individuals earn roughly 2% more per year than darker-skinned peers from the 1940s to the 2000s. Texturism, the bias based on hair texture and style, likewise impacts black men. Natural hair and coarse texture have been historically stigmatized in schools, workplaces, and even in media representation. According to the Crown Coalition, which advocates against hair discrimination, nearly 7 in 10 black people say their hair affects how they're perceived professionally. And then there's the notion of proximity to whiteness, the idea that certain features, dialects, or alliances might be seen as more acceptable or closer to the dominant culture's ideal. These internal and external pressures shape how black men navigate their identities in social, professional, and cultural spaces. Brothers, let's talk about it. Mel, I'll start with you. When you hear the word colorism, what does it bring up for you personally? How have you seen it play out among black men in family, friendships, or dating?
That's a great question. I mean, first and foremost, I think it calls to mind a colonizer's mentality where in order to dominate a group of people, to subjugate them, you are looking for ways to divide them and to separate them from becoming unified. And so, beginning centuries ago, preference for lighter skin, for one, and then other, perhaps features that are perceived as being closer to white or Caucasian, caused some ripples. I mean, I remember growing up as a small child in my grandfather's house, you would often hear conversations about being the same tone as a paper bag or high yellow or a red bone. But I don't know. Thank goodness for D'Angelo, for example. I mean, that brother broke down some doors and made it popular to be a darker brother, to have that be a standard of beauty within the black community.
Sure. We can go to you, or anybody can jump in. Let me know.
Takes me back to the boys' club, playing the dozens, being a dark-skinned brother at a very early age. Your black jokes, or your dark, the ignorant tropes, if you will, from kids who arguably don't mean any harm, but just being youthful. But growing up, even within the professional context and even within the family sphere, just understanding the spectrum of skin tones within our family and who was favored or admonished about being dark and how you carry yourself.
Yeah, I think that, it runs pretty deep in terms of, with the skin tones. It has always been said the lighter skinned people were the people that got to work in the house during, the slavery times, and the dark ones like me, we were out in the field. And so they were held in a higher regard because they were closer to, to the owner or to the slave master, and us out in the field, the dark skinned people, we were looked at as inferior. And I think even as a kid, being called tar baby or African booty scratcher and all these things that, back then were hurtful. And it wasn't until like mid-90s where we became in style.
Morris Chestnut got
Yeah,
you?
Morris Chestnut and Tay Diggs, I salute them. And it became okay to be dark skinned.
Sure.
It
Go ahead.
makes me think about also, growing up, everybody wanted to be light skinned. And like that was the thing to be. And if you outside for too long, it's like, oh snap, like, oh, I'm getting black. Oh no, I'm getting black. And it was just like this internalized, this generational internalization around like this fear of like our melanin. And then, I think it also kind of hit an inflection point to where then it flipped, and then you have more conversation now on like, oh, you acting light skinned, or like people, don't want to be light skinned no more because it's built up, its own reputation. When like neither side, really needs to matter. It's interesting to see how, as a culture, it's been this change and this movement around how we hold it, how we prioritize it, and how we socialize it.
Yeah, I think you're starting to say something as well.
Yeah, I think that stigma, that perception of being dark skinned and light skinned, we went through a lot as kids. The girls liked the light skinned guys more than the dark skinned guys. So it was always you didn't feel like you was more accepted within that. So that part, it stuck with you as a while. But as time went along, you really gained more respect for yourself and stuff of that nature. But it seemed like it was always a toss up from light to dark. So.
It's interesting because, like when you talk about the innocence of youth and just kind of, I guess, not knowing it, I had brown skin privilege because I wasn't, I didn't have to carry kind of the weight of being, teased for either way. You know what I'm saying? I wasn't light skinned, I wasn't dark skinned, so it was nothing that, I had to necessarily confront in that same way. And it wasn't until, you know, you start to mature, get older, just have access to more information just in terms of the root of where a lot of that comes from once you get outside of kind of the innocence of just being kids and just pointing out what is the most obvious sort of character trait that you could, you know, when you plan the dozens, or even just the idea of thinking, you know, lighter skinned people are prettier or whatever, you don't really know as a kid like what the root of that is. And so, you know, growing up, having, again, more access to that information, you really start to kind of look at it from a different lens, a different perspective. But personally, it wasn't something that I had to kind of deal with head on in that way, because, you know, I'm somewhere in the middle. Yeah.
Right. I will say though, a couple of you touched on the actual root comes out of slavery and colonization, and so how do those historical roots show up in the way we view ourselves today, ourselves individually and even each other?
I mean, I think it's like Melville brought up earlier. There historically has just been this notion that the distance between white and dark skin, somehow along that spectrum you get like less intelligent, or, you know, less worthy or less civilized, and that was intentional. That was very deliberate in terms of how they wanted to sort of structure how we even engage with each other. You may not even want to be seen near or around somebody who was darker skinned, because you don't want to be lumped into whatever that sort of perception was. And I think, you know, as history kind of turned into present day, you are still dealing with some of those same kind of stereotypes of like, you know, the darker you are, the more people assume certain things about, you know, your level of intelligence or level of integrity, or, you know, how well you sort of engage with, you know, civilized people in that way. And so I feel like there's so many situations where you have people who may be in a position where they have to over-index on certain things just to kind of, you know, separate themselves from that stereotype. And even in that, you can create some separation between people who are dark skinned and somebody feeling like, well, yeah, I'm dark skinned, but I'm not like that dark skinned. You know what I mean? Like, and so even in that, there is that level of, you know, competitive kind of separation in terms of like how much do you have to act a certain way to be perceived the same as somebody else.
You know, it's an archetype, man. When you look at darker skinned men of prominence and power, Benjamin Mays, Bill Cosby, Marcus Garvey, you have these, Martin Luther King, these trophy wives who are fair skinned, whereby it's the prize, you know. Women often call it the passport for them, you know, light, bright, damn near white, and going to the right schools. But there's something to that. Even if I look at, you know, my former wife and my current wife, they're not as dark as I am.
Sure.
And even within my vocation as a pastor, just like lawyers have coaches and there are recruiters, there are coaches who will come in, help you identify yourself and put a package to get some of the larger congregations. They'll talk to you about what does your package look like as far as how do you and your family present on the family portrait. You know, it's pretty deep, man, particularly in our community, what we're looking for, how we want to be projected by the people who are so-called called to lead us.
All I keep hearing is Willie Lynch letter, Willie Lynch letter, Willie Lynch letter.
Yeah, I just have to, you know, maybe I'm isolated in this thought, but it's certainly not like it was when I was growing up, you know, through the 70s. And even by the 80s, things had changed significantly. I mean, there was a strong cultural preference within the Black community for light skin, but I really think there's been a radical change. And, you know, there's an acknowledgement that, you know, I'll just say it in plain English, like being white or aspiring to have white features, I mean, that's a trope, that's an ideology, that's a worldview that many people are just not accepting anymore within the Black community. I mean, you see a lot more of our brothers and sisters wearing their hair naturally. You know, whatever that style is. We know we've had legislation recently that talks about hairstyles in the workplace and not discriminating. But I also think that, you know, I mean, I'll close on this thought. There's real irony in the fact that we were taught to hate the color of our skin, particularly the darker you are. But like, you know, a certain group of people, dominant group of people in this nation, can't wait to get to the beach in the summertime to get a little darker.
Yeah, sure.
That makes no sense.
I mean, it's a definite thing though, because I mean, even coming up as a kid, the girls that I liked, I felt like the light-skinned ones with the hazel eyes were untouchable. That was out of my reach. Had fate may have it, you know, I married a fair-skinned girl with hazel eyes, and I'll tell her this story all the time. I mean, I'm 23, 24 years old, walking down the street. I had no intentions of talking to her because she was fair-skinned and had light eyes, and in my eyes, that was unattainable for me. Had she not spoken to me, I wouldn't have been married to her at this point. So it's a real thing.
So you talked about the package as it relates to being a pastor and so, those types of things. So from a marketing perspective, well, from film, music, advertising, lighter hair, looser hair textures, lighter skin, are often framed as more desirable or more marketable. So how has that shaped like your self-identity, maybe in your profession or otherwise?
I mean, it's interesting that you brought up like Marcus Garvey and you know, some of the darker skinned like heroes from back then, because on the other side of that you have like Huey Newton and Angela Davis and Langston Hughes and some of those other sort of pioneers who were on the opposite end of that spectrum, and you saw them on the forefront of a lot of things. Specifically, you know, the iconic pictures of Angela Davis with the fist and the afro and some of that stuff. And so I think, you know, from that perspective, it hasn't always been, you know, like super, you know, separated in terms of how they presented those people to us within the community. But when you think of outside of that and what, from a capitalist perspective, like what some of the brands or some of the TV shows, movies, like you mentioned, you know, you definitely wouldn't see darker skinned people, depending on what the product was, depending on, you know, what the role is, that 100% kind of determined in some ways how dark or light, you know, some of the characters you saw on TV and in the movies.
I mean, I wonder if it weren't for it being, whether it was the late 90s or whatever, that you would see a Bernie Mac and a Sid the Entertainer on a Kings of Comedy tour, right? Traveling the nation in that regard.
But you even now today, you know, Mel said, you know, I don't know if you meant it's a thing of the past. It's still a thing. When you watch TV now, you watch commercials, and you see the black people that they have on TV are usually fair skinned or they're mixed. You very rarely see you know, a dark-skinned family. They're mixed with curly hair, and that's like the thing they try to portray because it's an easier sell at that point.
Oh, I would say this though. I think it's interesting though, right? Because all of that being true, think about how many commercials like Jordan was in. Like he was dark, but he was acceptable for some reason, right? There had to be this attribute that made him okay.
He could dribble.
You know, I'm looking, pardon?
He can dribble.
Right. I mean, Shaq. It's marketed like everything from whatever pizza to some cheap auto insurance, whatever, right? And he's dark.
Right.
So I think when you see oftentimes certain individuals, you know, or darker skin tones, it has to be associated with this thing that we think is okay. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the level of greatness you have to achieve to be able to, be the standard, like you said, to be able to be Shaq and be that dark and, talk that deep and, a certain bravado that comes with the level of greatness that he has.
But that level of greatness is also in you entertain me. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not just about being great, like being a great attorney or something like that, whatever, right? I mean, as an aside, they got a dark Clarence Thomas on the Supreme Court. I'm just not happy about that. I had to get that shot in. I'm sorry. Maybe it's the lawyer in me. I just had to take that shot.
But I guess with him, he's not threatening, right?
At all.
But I know within my other vocation that I am aware that I have to be, in particular for clients, cognizant about how other people perceive me. As far as my own and how I interact at this level, at this stage in my game, I really don't have to worry about being accepted because I do my own thing, have my own practice. But I'm very clear, even though I don't do divorce work, you don't need me as a big, black, confident man coming up, in particular, white woman, women in general, but a fair-skinned black woman, interrogating her on a stand. That may be problematic. And I saw it in court the other day. I was watching. You had a lighter-skinned black man and a darker-skinned black man, more developed features, hair, cornrows, dreads. And it's not so much that the lawyering was any different. The brother who had more defined features, I would say, knew the law and was on point. The other person, articulate, very, very much so, but he was more reflective of the standard of whiteness, and he got some nods. Objectively speaking, I mean, just calling it for what it is. And don't you be, the person of color, and you have something that a white male in particular in a powerful position doesn't have. It's like, who do you think you are? Or let me yank your chain. Or there's some enviousness there that today goes unchecked because they haven't gotten past this whole notion of white supremacy.
Well, let's talk about proximity to whiteness. Have you seen that idea, whether through speech, education, behavior? Have you seen that proximity to whiteness influence the way that black men navigate predominantly white spaces? I think the answer is yes. So somebody can just jump in.
Yeah, let me, I was thinking about this on the drive over, right? I was really fortunate, really blessed after undergrad. I ended up teaching Spanish to 7th and 8th graders in Southeast DC. And I'll never forget, literally like day one, week one, we're conjugating the verb to be. It's two forms in Spanish, but the verb to be. And, I am, you are. And I was blown away by these young 7th and 8th graders in Southeast DC. They're like, I be, you is. Like, they couldn't conjugate the verb in English, and I got to teach them Spanish. So I'm not going to digress any further. But the point that I'm trying to make is the kids would taunt me from time to time, like, ooh, Mr. Nickerson, you talk white. And I'm like, wait a minute. Just because I'm using standard, proper English, I'm perceived as white. I don't accept that. Like, there are certain things you're not going to project on me, and I'm not going to accept it. I work in a space. I'm also an attorney, and so I really think being an attorney, being an advocate, being a lobbyist, it's all about the art of communication. And so, if I'm going to choose my words carefully, to be persuasive, to get the points I need to get across, I'm going to do that. And if there's different opportunities for me to use less or to use more colloquial words, I'll use the more colloquial words. But I feel confident in really both spaces in both communities, and I don't embrace this idea that, I sound white just because of the way I talk. I'm engaged in trying to do business successfully. So if you engage in doing business successfully, well, then you have to show up looking a certain way, per se, professional, sounding a certain way, professional.
Yeah, I think that was what you just touched on was coming up for me as I was trying to think of these instances of colorism. But then every time I was thinking of specific moments, I was also thinking around my perception around like how I would speak, particularly like younger growing up. And then also when we had our past conversations around masculinity, I was seeing how like the three of those kind of function with each other. And I remember when I was a younger bull, I would feel like I was too white for the black kids and too white for the black kids and too black for the white kids. You know what I'm saying? That was like this thing that would like confuse me in my like early identity formation, because when I'm with black folks, whether it was family or whether it was in school, I felt like there was this need. I had to like prove that I was black enough and prove my blackness out. But then when I was in white spaces or more, mixed cultural spaces, then I felt like it was this weird tension of like trying to prove that I'm not whatever their ideas of like a young black man is. And when I was in those spaces that weren't as black, I would feel dark skinned. But then when I was in more black spaces, I'd be getting cracked on for being light skinned. So it was just always these like these voices outside of my own and these reflections outside of me that like started to build my identity. And I feel like I'm just recently kind of getting to a point where I'm just who I am. And I know I'm black and I'm proud in that, but being young, like it's just a lot of other people's perceptions that inform your own, which I think is why the culture swings so much.
Yeah. I'll share as well, and I'll tell you, it's funny, man, that I was thinking about an example from when I was in high school, and I'm also thinking about my daughter who's gonna kill me for mentioning this, but my daughter went to a school up north, K through 6, and at one point she's like, Dad, there's only like maybe 2 black girls in my class. So she felt the way about that. She now is at a different school, which is more, pretty rigorous academically, whatever, but it's predominantly black. I remember having a conversation and saying, look, sweetheart, you're complaining now because there's not enough black people. What are you gonna do when you get to a school and they say you're not black enough? Because to your point, we're not about to prove stereotypes about what people think black is for you to fit in. But I thought a little bit more about, like, even when I was coming up, like, I know it sounds super random, but I have a tattoo right here, of Tupac and Kurt Cobain. And it was because, like, when I went to school, I liked Nirvana, I really legitimately did, you know what I'm saying? When I went to school though, people were like, it was okay that I listened to Nirvana. When I went home, it was okay I listened to Tupac. But neither was okay on the other side. So I actually keep that as a reminder, just like, man, you're not gonna fit in anywhere anyway, so just be you. You know what I'm saying? But it took me until a certain point, right? Like, to even embrace that before I would even ink it on my body, you know what I'm saying, let alone thinking it in that way.
So what do you think, like, that stems from being articulate, being educated, being able to form a complete sentence or conjugate verbs? Why has that become synonymous with being white?
Well, when you think about it, like, who was allowed, it's like these tiers of who was allowed that type of access. And when we go back to the time of the antebellum South and of slavery, if you were lighter skinned, then your odds of being in the house are better. If you're in the house, more, then odds are you may get trained to be reading the bedtime stories to the kid or to handle more of the, I guess, like, administrative household burden. And then that determines how well you can matriculate into other spaces. Or if you're light skinned or you could pass for white, then you can sneak into school. So it's like this layered thing that I think is deep seated.
Because you hear those stories about, people, I was reading about Fannie Lou Hamer and sort of a lot of those people in that era where, because they were dark skinned and because they weren't allowed access to some of those things, they went the extra mile to make sure they had dresses and suits, and everywhere we go, we're gonna look presentable and present a certain way. So even though we don't have that proximity to be in the house and what you would assume would be access to more you know, etiquette or proper teaching or things of that nature, like we're still gonna present ourselves in a way where you can't play with us a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, it's tough navigating even the idea of proper and standard, and the fact that that bar was set through the lens of whiteness and, you know what I mean, whatever that means. So having to sort of, as you mature and grow in these spaces, whether it's, you know, your community, school, work, and you are trying to sort of acclimate to what the definition of proper and standard is, and then building up your confidence to redefine whatever that means, because you still have your own sort of cultural lens that you navigate life through, where I might not be comfortable in what they deem as a proper suit, but I've done the work. I've earned my place in these spaces, so I can redefine what that looks like, or what that sounds like, or how I show up in a way that, you know, allows me to maintain that access, but also doesn't necessarily have to fit what they deem as proper or standard, or, you know what I mean? Like it's a very interesting kind of dichotomy to try to figure out how, like where those worlds merge.
In times of political turmoil and economic uncertainty, telling the stories of our city and neighborhoods is more critical than ever. At CAN TV, we do just that. But with shrinking budgets and pressure on independent media, the future of hyper-local news is at risk. Your generous financial support ensures that we can keep shining a light on what matters most, right here in the city of Big Shoulders. Visit cantv.org and donate today. The power of community television depends on you. You, me, we are CAN TV.
They say television is about sitting back. We say it's about stepping up. Your block has stories worth telling. Your neighbors have voices worth hearing. Chicago has a heartbeat worth sharing. Stop watching their world. Start showing yours. It's time to tune in and be seen. CAN TV. Always here, always yours. Experience the power of community television.
I want to address two issues. Being inside the house and being inside certain spaces, maybe based on color of your skin or the way you talk, right? So I just keep seeing that scene in School Days, Spike Lee's movie School Days, where they just yell, "Wake up!" All right? So let's be for real. If you were in the house, you suffered all types of abuse because of your proximity to whiteness. You were subjugated and abused sexually, verbally. You were demeaned. That was a constant thing that went on to make sure you understood your place and your role. So I'm saying no. I'm not buying this. Oh, somehow it was better in the house. No, it was bad or worse. The second thing I want to talk about is let's talk about being in certain spaces, right? Yes, you could be at a law firm. You could be at a top law firm. Your hair can be straight. Your eyes can be hazel. But guess what?
You're black.
Absolutely, you're black.
It's brutal.
Well, it can be brutal, but I propose a proposition that y'all will readily agree with. There is a thing called black excellence. And when we walk into these spaces, we are walking in with a sense of confidence, purpose, and an understanding of who we are based on our history. There is no mistake that during slavery, they didn't want you to read. Oh, why is that? You can't be educated, you can't learn, you can't understand the history that Africans traversed the oceans before Europeans did? Oh, we don't want to talk about that. That's fairy tale stuff. I don't think so. These things about who we are in these spaces is we have to embrace who we are. And I'll just close on this note. Thank God for James Brown. I'm black and I'm proud. right? Black is beautiful. I mean, for the man who had a perm.
Did he ever?
I don't disagree with your point at all about, you know, the conditions that, you know, the people in the house had to deal with. But I think when you think about, okay, you're in here and you're not equal to us, but if you're gonna serve us, you have to dress a certain way. And that way didn't reflect the way that the people in the field, but the garments that they had access to, or, you know, you're gonna serve us at this table, so you have at least some exposure to what proper etiquette looks like and those types of things. So that when I say kind of where those differences were and how, you know, somebody outside looking in, I don't have the same, you know, I'm not easily sort of, I don't see how much you have to endure in real time. And so people on the outside are like, there is a sort of distance between what I'm dealing with and what you're dealing with, until you realize the distance isn't, you know, to your point. We're all suffering and dealing with these things.
So brother, I readily agree with what you're saying. I readily agree with what you're saying. And I want to just use a quick example going back to Clarence Thomas.
Pivot back to, go ahead.
All right, it has to do with colorism, and, you know, I'll be very quick, all right? Clarence Thomas, if you watch a documentary on Clarence Thomas, his trajectory through Yale, him feeling uncomfortable, ashamed that he was there because ostensibly it was for affirmative action, all right? I'm not gonna say anything about who he married, but ultimately, let me just pivot quickly. The very rich gentleman that became his benefactor, that was flying him all over the world, things of that nature, when he was asked, go Google it, when he was asked, would you have been friends with Clarence Thomas if he was not a Supreme Court judge? And he's like, no. So I understand what you're saying about how the lens of what it looks like to be from the outside looking in, but I'm saying, brothers, we do not embrace the construct that somehow whiteness is the standard for what is excellent, what is perfect, what is best. Because if you really think about it, if you look in your history, the opposite is actually true.
Yeah, I think the issue though is we're talking very, it's an insular conversation. Sure, that makes sense amongst a group of folks who have a certain level of education, earn a certain amount of money, have access to the internet, the library, so on and so on. But when we talk about, like, as a general matter, unfortunately, there's not enough, let me say not a lot, but not enough young folks who understand that point, right? Who understand that, you know what, when you go to court, you're gonna stand out no matter what, so you might as well be a damn good lawyer. Because you're gonna stand out no matter what. Yeah. There's no doubt about it, whatever, right? And I think that's part of your point as well. And I don't think either one of you are trying to, you know, minimize the struggle that somebody has based on their proximity to proximity to whiteness in that instance. But I wanna make sure that we think about this from our perspectives, whatever, but then also, you know, the next generation, like the really young folks like Justice over here.
His younger days, as he mentioned.
The youngest of the Bulls. The youngest of the Bulls. Let's talk about relationships. So how do these hierarchies of color and texture influence how we choose partners or perceive attractiveness, both inside and outside the Black community?
Yeah, I mean, I could go back to my story. Yeah. I mean, I thought, honestly, I really shied away from talking to light-skinned females for the longest time. I mean, it was one of those things where, again, I just felt like they looked down on me. I was not desirable, and I stayed away from it. So it was not until that my wife spoke to me, and I realized that, number one, I had a thought that most of them were conceited, you know, stuck up and just not approachable, which she completely broke that wall down. And, you know, I'm glad that I found her, but I probably passed up on a lot of good friendships, a lot of good, you know, opportunities for relationships just because I had that minimizing, that thought that I could not be with that.
You said you're glad that you found it. You glad she shot her shot?
She shot her shot. Yeah, she did shoot her shot. I realized.
Anybody else?
You know, as much as it seems like it's an
Going back
instant
to the, go ahead.
conversation of, as far as what goes on in our community, particularly when you talk about brothers who are, you know, developed and educated and, you know, have the ability to have their picking of women in particular, there is this desire, if you will, this fad to even date outside the race. Not even so much the white woman, but the exotic Asian woman, right? And so even the pecking order within that context today is just really telling, if you will. I remember I was teaching at a charter school during pandemic, and gave me an opportunity really to connect with young people in a way that I hadn't before. Coming in as an attorney, pastor, for the little time that I was there, I told some of the young men who were strong in their character, they had swag, maybe not the brightest. I said, you know, go out and get, quote unquote, the baddest, most intelligent woman out there, because your cachet as a black man is marketable now, and you need that assistance. But you know, the whole notion of, you know, light versus dark for them really wasn't playing out, and they really hadn't been anywhere outside the south side of Chicago to understand that you had women, in particular of all hues and different cultures, that, you know, they really didn't have context for. But within the marketplace of who they projected themselves to be, or who the media put them out there to be, they had the ability to have different relationships.
I think you were about to say something. Can I just jump in for one quick moment?
Yeah, sure.
All of this has made me think, and you mentioned James Brown, and you talk about like kids on the south side of Chicago. I think that's why it was so important to have like the Ebonies, the Jets, the Essence, the Black Enterprise. Those things were like, even if you are on the south side or Chicago or whatever, just seeing the beauty of the week. I remember that growing up. And the beauty of the week was not always light. She wasn't always dark. She was always fine, but she wasn't always one way versus the other. So even having that opportunity, or even, you know, BET, as it were, at one point. So, sorry to cut you off. I think you were saying?
We were just talking about the relationships and stuff of us being black men, and we wanted more light-skinned women and stuff like that, and we was inferior to those things. And it just came into mind of, you know, old past things, but really not quite, you know, something we could actually get. So we was always wanting and longed for that, but really didn't know how to go about getting it. That was what I really was saying. Just, you know, we just got to more believe in ourselves and just be comfortable in our own skin, basically. That's what I was saying.
I didn't even think about this, again, south side of Chicago, but now one of my favorite movies was Cooley High. And going back and thinking about it, Preach, dark-skinned brother, whatever. He was so excited when he finally got with that light-skinned girl. You know, I mean, he was, what's that tailcoat cheese? He owed me, you know, he owed me $1. You know, but really it was because he was dark, she was super light, or whatever, and that was a huge deal.
So, I mean, you remember, I got told one time, you know, if I touched a light-skinned girl, I was gonna leave fingerprints on her.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, those
Did you
things,
try?
I did. Now I know for sure that's not a fact. So.
That is terrible, but funny. Let's talk about healing and accountability. So for men, conversations about bias and beauty standards can be uncomfortable. Like, I'm uncomfortable reading this question. What does healing look like for black men who want to confront their own biases and to hold one another accountable?
I think it is around a lot of just what's happening culturally. I think a lot of what shapes your lens and kind of how you engage with society is just what's happening culturally, what's happening in the music you consume, even the friendships that you have, what those conversations are like. And I think, you know, there has been an evolution of like Black and I'm Proud and, you know, the Black Power movement and Black is Beautiful and all of these sort of updates and derivatives of that, of the spirit of that message. And I think it's a lot different now than what it was before. And so I think a lot of that healing just comes in being in tune with just kind of the spirit of that. Like Black is it's such a wide range, and it comes in so many different shades. And you know, that accountability piece, and sort of as in real time, you know, addressing when somebody says, you know, this particular shade might be better than that particular shade, and just kind of interrogating that a little bit, like why, how, what makes you think that, and really just kind of, you know, being in a position where, again, you can sort of help redefine or reshape what those standards that we've been given really look like, and how we can kind of move beyond that. I think a lot of what the beauty products and, you know, even music and artists that are being promoted and how they promote themselves, and they lean into the natural hair and their dark skin, and I think that goes both for men and women, and in a lot of ways gives other people permission to accept how beautiful they are as well. And I think as long as people are really, you know, not running away from, not hiding from that, and again, that accountability piece of like interrogating, because you like who you like. Right. You know what I mean? You love who you love. So if you have a preference, whatever, but the idea that one is beautiful and one is not, right, versus this is just what I'm typically attracted to, right, are very different things.
And perhaps this is more idealistic, but I like to think that as Black folks, there's so much room for us to better know ourselves, and one path that we have to do that is through our ancestry. And it's very easy to be like, oh, you got your mama color, or you know what I'm saying, and you know, to have such surface level focusing on skin color, but to be able to click a level deeper and like really know your family and see your family, really know your ancestors, and be like, oh, okay, like I got my granddaddy nose, you know what I'm saying? I have my grandmother's eyes, like, oh, me and all my cousins look alike because we got the same ears or jawline structure, you know what I'm saying? Like really finding those opportunities to love and identify why we are the way we are, instead of that surface level of just the skin, in a separating type of way, though. You know what I'm saying?
That, though, I think even if we move beyond identifying those features, and just kind of beyond those physical traits, like I have my grandmother's integrity, I have my grandfather's grit. You know what I'm saying? Like I have the resilience of the people who came before me, because that's where you get that internal confidence. That's where you can come into a place and be around anybody and say, I'm standing firm in who I am, my skin tone, the complexion of the people around me. Like I don't have to see you and think, you know, any preconceived anything, because if you come into a place with that same level of confidence, not because of the features or anything like that, and just because like we come from strength, we come from beauty. You know what I'm saying? Like it's that is what it is.
Yeah. So I just think what we have to do is stop. And I think a lot of our styles, a lot of our hairstyles and things came from trying to be the polar opposite of white. Just we're pulling so far away from it, just to make a statement, instead of really just looking at it and embracing our own beauty and not trying to you know, contrast what we have and who we are to what they are. And if we just start more focusing on us and looking inside of who we are and what we bring to the table as a people, I think that's where the true healing is going to really come from. Because the more we try to run that rat race of just being different instead of just being us, that's going to you know, it's going to be a problem.
Yeah,
So
I just wanted to.
It's authentic.
Yeah, I just wanted to jump in really quick, maybe make 2 points about the Black aesthetic, right? Black aesthetic is highly desired. It's $1 billion industry. It's a global industry, right? I remember, particularly in the 70s, and I'm gonna pay you highest compliment, brother.
Thank you.
Every time, I told you already tonight, every time I see you, man, your hair, it's on point.
You live in a
bro.
barbershop, you know that, man.
Okay, well, I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm like, every time I see you,
Every
man. But so, all right, a little humor. But the point I'm trying to make is, I remember in the 70s, man, like a fade was a real thing, right? And it still carries through to today, right? And you did not see many other ethnic groups with the fade. But in a humorous way, I'm just trying to project something on how, what I'm saying, that the Black aesthetic is a real thing. It's a global thing. So I like to joke with my kids, man. I was really fortunate. 2 summers ago, I was in Nice, and I was like, oh, I got to get a haircut. So I found a barbershop. I don't know, guys were Arab, Moroccan, North African. Sat down in the chair, got a dope fade. So I sent a selfie to my kids, and I'm like, the fade is universal. And the same is true. I was fortunate again. I was blessed to be in Ghana, to be in Keta, and actually sat down at a barbershop and got a mean fade. So, you know, it's just interesting. You see so many other ethnic groups. I'm not gonna call anybody out, but you see so many other ethnic groups universally, globally, that are now like wearing a fade, you know, and sometimes colder than some of us look.
So we got to wrap in a few, fellas, so I want to make sure we all get a chance to chime in on this one. We'll start with you, Mel, but if you could redefine what it means to be seen and valued as a black man beyond, to your point, proximity to whiteness, what would that new definition look like?
I don't look like my ancestors standing on African soil. That's what I'm talking about, because really what's been buried in misinformation is a stellar advancements in math, science, architecture, civil planning, community, hair aesthetics. I mean, it's amazing. So that is what I'm on a constant journey to rediscover.
Okay. Kind of lighten it, right?
Yeah,
Go ahead.
strength, perseverance, courage, exuding that at all costs.
There we go, okay.
I think it's really just embracing the full person. Don't lean into that old notion of I don't see color. See it, embrace it, you know what I mean? Learn how to appreciate it.
Embracing my black power as a man means everything to me, because I get a lot of following and people look up to me. So that me pushing that out, that means I've been doing my homework and everything's right. You know, I'm just proud of who I am now in this space, and I put that out front first.
Young Bull?
Staying creatively expressive, you know, and proud in it. You know, letting your essence and your flavor and your light and the things that you're interested in really shine through.
I would just say you don't have to run a football, dribble a basketball, or entertain somebody to be beautiful and seen.
Amen.
Thank you all again. Really appreciate you chiming in. On the other side of a short break, I'm back with some closing thoughts. Stay with us.
Right now, funding cuts and cord cutting threaten the future of local media. But Chicago cannot afford to lose its only platform where every voice is heard. Since 1983, CAN TV has given everyday Chicagoans unfiltered access to tell their stories, hold leaders accountable, and keep democracy alive at the local level. But we simply cannot continue without your help. Consider making a financial gift today, because if we lose local voices, we lose Chicago.
What this month's conversation reveals is that the legacy of colorism and texturism didn't begin with us, but it lives through us when we don't confront it. These hierarchies of skin tone, hair texture, and so-called proximity to whiteness are not just historical footnotes. They are systems of value that still shape opportunity, beauty, belonging, and even brotherhood. But as we heard from the brothers over the past hour, the work of unlearning begins with awareness, with acknowledging how those biases show up in our choices, our relationships, and even how we see ourselves. If we can face that truth with honesty and compassion, then maybe we can start building something new. Not just a redefinition of blackness, but a fuller embrace of our own humanity. Because our shade, our hair, our features, all of it is part of a story that's always been more than enough. Thank you for making time in your day for CAN TV and for Brothers Talking. Until we meet again, keep showing up for yourselves and for each other.